And you probably will hear a little thing where I start the recording too. Okay, looks like we are good to go. We're gonna welcome everyone to another edition of Healing is War. On this podcast, we explore the dark side, the shadows of things you may encounter on your spiritual journey. Hold on a second. I got feedback. Okay. Had to pause there a second. So we explore the dark side of starting your spiritual journey. And on each episode, we talk with a spiritual teacher about something you might encounter or something you might need to address on your healing, your spiritual journey. My name is Elmira. Today we have a special guest, Miss Heather Ann Ferri. I like to call her a master teacher because part of throwing away our toolkit is what's up with all the titles? Like we got to tell everybody's whole history. You do this, that you are literally a master teacher. And when we talked the other week, this topic, this statement, these few words is what stood out. Throw away the toolkit. First of all, welcome. Can you give some framework about what this even means? Where did this come from? Where did this phrase come from? Because I know it has a deep, critical, important meaning for you.
Thank you for having me on your show. And yes, in that conversation, I was voicing the years of working as a trauma coach and stepping into the role of a healer where other people called me that, but it wasn't necessarily that I called myself that at the moment in time. And going through a first dark night of the soul over 12 years ago, going through a lot of different severe healing crises. But it was really when my father passed away in 2022 that I write about that in book two. Book one's coming out this month, which is exciting. And book two starts out really with what happened in those 44 days of my dad's sickness. That was really a sort of, uh, I would say, sort of a PhD degree in how timelines intersect when people have not healed their traumas. So I got to see all family members, mom, dad, and brother go in and out of timelines as I'm trying to navigate what is the highest and most conscious thing to do with my father as he is, in essence, dying, but also I feel being murdered by the medical system, which is a harsh term, but I don't use that lightly. And it's really used to start conversations with, in America, our medical system. So with that said, when he passed, I heard him, I felt him immediately. Now, I had had experiences with souls, navigating souls to the other side. I've always sort of gotten an inkling of when somebody was going to pass. That's connected to me a week before. But I was not prepared for what was going to happen with my father, which was after the funeral. He was in my house. And, we had a lot to work out. There was a lot of anger and resentment into the role he played in this physical life for me as a father. And honestly, I didn't want him in my house. I was trying to kick him out. I was like, now you show up. You didn't show up with the tribe coming at me as a victim and the tribe, judging me and neglecting me and all those years of being brutally sick and all that stuff. Now you show up. And so it wasn't a go lucky fun experience. And I write about that in book two for the first couple months. But he was persistent, and I think that comes from a love and an understanding that I was in trouble and didn't even know I was in trouble. in a lot of different references. I was in trouble with the people around me. I was in trouble with the psychology still ingrained in me. I was in trouble with my body because I had generational, traumas, layers and layers of healing. And so, he would wake me up in the middle of the night. Now, this was common as a yogi years ago to wake up at 3 a.m. That's how I wrote my first book. I used to wake up every morning at 3 a.m., write for 2 hours. Like I'm a very disciplined soul. But, I would say with my father's death, I would say I, in physical terms, had a nervous breakdown, but I would say I had spiritual breakdown as well. And in the process of him waking me up and saying, go downstairs, and literally I'm sitting at my office desk and he's literally turning on the computer, which may sound to you like a movie. And my idea is, well, if you write something, a script in a movie, can it be real life? We're so fascinated with our artificial intelligence, and we're getting so far away from our own telepathic artificial intelligence as human beings in the human body that I have a fear that we are going to continue to be dumbed down as opposed to becoming more advanced the way we used to be before all these wars that happened in the last 500 years. So as he was persistent, and he was persistent, he said, you have to throw away your toolkit. Now, at that point, I'd been hired around the world. People traveled in as a trauma coach for 2 weeks, 8 hours a day. I had a large toolkit, an advanced toolkit. Um, but he guided me. And at first I was hesitant. I followed. I had nothing to lose. I'm definitely always curious. I think that's what has led me to this moment. Curiosity is an important thing to develop healthy mental health. Um, and so when he said, throw away your toolkit, there's a part of your ego that's like, really? And as I started to listen to him and making the adjustments, now it's not that I threw away all the ancient sciences. I adjusted some of them, but I did throw away a lot of the physical work I was doing on my body, myofascial, all that stuff that I was trying to pull out trauma. And those are beautiful techniques, but man, they were not going to take out the level of trauma from my bloodline and from my library of past lives. So he was absolutely correct. And I'm deeply grateful that I listened, even though it has been a rough 3 years, but it has unraveled a soul database of information about myself that I don't regret going through that war. I think there were many wars because I come from some powerful energies, souls in my bloodline. But they had a lot of brain damage and traumas because of the circumstances of what they were dealing with, practicality in the physical Mother Earth at the time, and specifically in the last 500 years.
Okay, I'm just pausing a little bit because one thing you said was about this like intertwining of timelines and how your father, after his death, was persistent. He was in your house, and you're like, I really didn't want him to be there, but he was there. He was waking me up at 2 in the morning, at 3 in the morning,
Mhm.
whatever time it was. I wrote down this question. Who was speaking? Was it really your father, or was it other people too? Was it more people in your lineage? Who was really speaking these things to you?
It was my father at that moment, specifically in the first 6 months, really navigating me to doing other therapies, specifically on my body, because there was so much trauma in the joints and the hips and the feet and the ankles. But then more, I call them angels, however way you want to, interpret them, star seeds, whatever, that started to come in, Mr. Rogers, Jimmy Slide, specifically those two souls play a very intricate role in my book series, all the whole book series. I introduced Jimmy Slide in book one, but he plays a huge role in book two. Um, they start coming in to help because the collateral damage to my bloodline is pretty huge. And the life-threatening healing crises that I've endured, to have one life-threatening healing crisis in a life is one thing, but when I look now at this moment, there were many. You have to be beyond a master teacher, spiritual advancement to be able to endure the torture of pain. And so that's what's going to be leading me in the future as a new earth healer leader, attracting in the leaders specifically in America that are willing to consciously look at maybe their bloodline lineages, but also to look at themselves to advance themselves for their own children's, I say, sake. And so, yeah, there were many, and now I have angels come and they are helping me in specific ways. And I know who they are or who they were in physical life. Some of them I won't be mentioning for protection reasons, and that's the divine mother in me. I'm
Mhm.
protecting them as much as I'm protecting the information they're helping to guide me. But Jimmy Slide and angelic Mr. Rogers will take the front stage with me. So every event, every retreat, they are, and even in this, before we got on, I meditated and asked their guidance into what I can say and what I can't say, because there is sacredness in some of the information that I have. That's important to keep sacred at this moment in time. But no mistake that angelic Mr. Rogers definitely is arranging some of the podcast meetings and some of the people that I'm speaking with. And sometimes it doesn't make any sense. There's no rhyme or reason until the podcast happens. And then I go, oh, he's orchestrating something that I actually don't know yet what that is. And having done the OCD brain work, I can let go of that control, right? Surrender. I had to surrender to these energies. And thank God I did. There was an advancement though. There was I'm going to do a little bit of what you're telling me. Oh, I'm seeing a result. I'm understanding more about myself. Okay, so I'm going to do more. I always feel like we should qualify things too. I've met so many souls along the journey who've spent tens and tens of thousands of dollars. And I asked them some questions about themselves, and they know very little. They're like, oh, well, I had a past life, but they don't really know. Like somebody told them information, but they don't really know what it has to do with their life in this life. And they don't know how it deals with their behavioral patterns. And I'm thinking, well, what did you learn? Why give that information if you're not understanding how to implement it into the development of your advancement to your highest timeline in this life? So it was a deep tangent, but
That's what it was supposed to be. You allowed it to direct, let it go where it needs to go. Something, okay, something you were saying, because I'm thinking back to one of your other earlier comments about how a lot of the tools you first relinquished were the physical things like myofascial release, and I can imagine massage therapy or some other somatic things, more
yoga.
things, yoga. There you go. You master at the yoga too.
Yeah.
What do you feel many of us are addicted to certain tools that we can't see the connection between what those tools are meant to integrate into our life? And it's why we stay crutched to, let's use yoga. We may stay crutched to a certain yoga practice because we may be addicted to a certain way, or addicted to the fear of something else coming in. I don't know. I'm hearing this word addiction. What are your
I
thoughts?
think that's a great question. I think there's a safety net, there for me, yoga, I love yoga. I love the breath work. I taught it very differently. I'm always different in every, even tap dance, I taught very differently. But I think there's a safety net, a security of that. But for me, I knew I was having a nervous breakdown when my dad died. I knew that my body felt heavy. I knew that I had a lot of issues with his death, not just what happened in the medical field, but what happened in my family system that couldn't be ignored. I knew that my practice was draining and I had, uh, specific assignments. I had a lot of assignments from the Divine Mother. And so for me, I think I think two things. I think our system in the American system has lacked an overall education on trauma for a reason. Two, I think that yes, people get stuck like when you think of the medical field, it went from naturopaths to pharma. It went from naturopaths, if you really understand the history, to specialization. So, like, I speak about my grandmother's death in book one, somebody who I can look back and was the only one that held the pain for me for moments and kind of was prophesizing my future at the time. And I look back at her death and how everybody specialized. So you have 12 different doctors and they all specialize on an organ, but they don't know how the whole system works. When we became that, that became a problem. That's also with the healing arts. We have people that specialize. I love acupuncture. Oh, I love it. But I did it for 2 years. A lot of my clients did it for 2 years. It circulates hardcore torture, sexual abuse, trauma. You need different type of tools for that. So for me, it was a dance. And so it's hard because you do your studies. This is how you're making your income. And it's hard to have time to study other things. I think because I had so much trauma and it was so complicated, and because of who I am in my soul database, I wasn't willing to settle in my healing. And so I do think that healers need a more diverse training. I would love to provide that. I think they need to upgrade in their healing in order to have more of an understanding of the dance of the toolkit, because you can have two, souls that have similar stories in front of you, and yet the dance of the toolkit is different. And when you don't have that diversity, you are limited as a healer. So I would say that for the physical education, um, I had been a professional dancer. I had trained seriously, worked in New York City. So the body was something I knew. It was something that I was very prideful of, especially when I hit my first rock bottom 12 years ago and I couldn't walk. Talk about an ego death. I can't walk now. What am I going to do? I have to use my voice. I have to teach in a different way. I have to, so that forces me. I then have to feel things. Things are frozen. Going into my dad's death of like, throw away your toolkit and going into the different movements and breath patterns. One thing I learned is it's not just about doing breath exercises. It's about understanding the information, the intelligence behind your breath patterns in movements. That's not being taught in any of Pilates, yoga, Jerkinis. It's not being taught. And I had that advancement. I have that advancement. So it wasn't just that I was doing another technique. I was taking the advancement and understanding this is mother's DNA, psychology, generational problems, and then the yin yang of my father's DNA, generational problems. And every opening door wasn't just I'm opening a joint and the inflammation's down. It was a bunch of information. So after 3 years of that, which takes discipline, I now have a very young, my hip structure's different. My leg structure is different. My ankle to point the toe is different because the bones realigned with the tissues and muscles as the trauma was releasing, as the storylines were releasing, which is where I go, this is where I want us to go into advancement instead of focusing so much on a robot Let's focus on upgrading this amazing technology so that when we come together in union and have children, we're not re-traumatizing them. We're not abusing them to shorten and tighten their joints and restrict them. So when I think about healing in the United States, look at the stats of 50-year-olds and higher, the overweight. I can walk around anywhere now and see tons of trauma. The hips are frozen. People, their joints and their ankles are frozen. So a lot of these movements with the breath patterns are that I was reinduced into through a combination of things with my father was animals.
Hmm.
And when we were working movements like a spider, we're connecting with the spider kingdom. When we're working movements with what a frog does, we're working with, and so our 80, 90-year-olds, in my opinion, in a healthy environment, are extremely limber and thin and flexible and mobile. Not because they're on an exercise workout routine, but because they've exercised all of the trauma, all of the wars, whether that was literal wars or the wars of torture, RAPE, all these types of abuses that we're not even defining. I was thinking about your healing is war, and I was defining myself of healing and what is war. And I was thinking, because I've been through tons of wars in the last 3 years.
Mm.
And I was thinking, there are not really many podcasts, and I'm not sure if it's an appropriate topic for children to listen to. But I'm not sure there's many conferences either that discuss what physically actual damage happens when somebody below the age of 20 is sexually abused, let alone tortured. So if we're not even breaking that down, how do we know how to heal it? I do, because I had to break those things down because my past lives and some of my bloodline were tortured, chained, and brutally RAPE from many
Mhm.
predators. And so this just keeps getting passed down. And how do I know? Like, my hips are completely different now. My ankles are completely different now. Was the work easy? I've got to be honest, no, because it's easy to do stretches and breath work. It's not easy to shake out and cry and feel torture and feel that level of pain. That's why we have people addicted. Even yogis addicted to, I'm in the higher realm. I just deal with the higher realm, And you think to yourself, but you're here on Mother Earth. You've chosen to be here. Have you looked around? Does it matter that we have such a crisis in sexual abuse and sexual assault? Does it matter that children are being stolen every day? Does it matter that our water and soil are poison? Or are we just going to live in the higher realm? I'm a higher realm. So and I've dealt with those yogis. They come to me at 25 years and they're in disassociation. So there's disassociation, but I think there's a dyslexia. I think there's a
Hmm.
severe dyslexia specifically in America. And that was another thing that my dad was persistent about. He was persistent about me doing the medical meditation, which I believe is in book 1 coming out. If it's not, it's in book 2. For dyslexia. Now, my dad had dyslexia because I know now he was abused as a child. I know specifically what happened to him. And that caused the dyslexia. That dyslexia and that abuse is important because that's why he didn't defend his daughter. That's why he didn't show up for her. That's why he actually taught the family system to ignore me. That wasn't who he was in a past life. So what changed from the past life to this life? Oh, he was sexually abused. Oh, that causes dyslexia in the brain. So when he's telling me to do the dyslexia medical meditation once again, I'm like, I don't need to do that. I was never diagnosed with, I don't have a learning disability in essence. I mean, I had learning issues, but as I rewired my brain and became healthier, I, became really smart. Oh, that's an interesting concept. But then one day I decided to start doing it. And that was also a game changer. I was starting to see all my relationships were about people taking. That was about them taking everything. And I was also set around predators for assignments to understand. I have actually faced all the major predators from my and some of the women in my bloodline, and to learn their psychology or a lack of, to understand it. And what purpose is that? Well, to not repeat it, to know it's in the room, even if it looks fancy, right? Even if it's got a nice suit on and that person's very wealthy, to know, to feel it, to know the difference in how somebody is in their energy and my body language. And with the predators and studying them, to understand too, if you don't have any consequences to your debts, and a lot of them never had to face consequences, we know that from slavery, do you really advance? And my answer is no, you don't. So I am actually doing a service in explaining the predators. Obviously, I keep their names, I don't mention them. And they may not care at this point. They're millionaires, they got their cushion little lives. They may not care about, but at least I get to have a voice where me and my ancestors didn't in the past, because we were chained. We didn't get to have a voice. Now I get to have a voice and talk about predator psychology and how it continues. And with leaders, that's why I want to attract in leaders that actually are higher conscious and want to either clean up their bloodline or change the way America is that if you don't understand this stuff, we are creating new businesses every day in America that is hurting America. It's hurting our soil. It's hurting what we're consuming. It's hurting the financial sector. And I have a wide view of that from my ancestral angelic pull, and the angels that have passed away have come to me. Some of them were in business. That's crazy. I'm a healer, I'm ancient, and they're coming to me when they were business gurus because they see it now on a totally different realm. And I think it's like a spiritual death America is going through, but I also think it's like people need to be aware of what is a spiritual death if you've lost connection to your soul. And in some senses, in the last couple of years, it's been brutal. The healings have been brutal, life-threatening. But wow, like who I am at this moment, the wisdom I have is priceless. Like it's priceless. And I'm not going to just share it with everyone. It's sacred. There's a qualification and understanding some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody can go through it themselves. I'll give you an example. I'm kind of going off, but I talk about my Reiki teacher in my book one. She was definitely very different and unique. She's the only actual physical teacher I really had. And we were really masters working with each other because I ended up working with her as a yogi. She moved out of Pittsburgh, went on, but she was the real deal. And I talk about that in great detail. But I remember the training. I remember knowing all the symbols. I remember being an energy healer in Japan and all that information. But I remember I have conversations with her. I said, the people who are showing up for this weekend workshop, you're not going home and like doing homework or journaling or watching their diet. They have parasites in them. There's no, I think it's great for people to study and incorporate that in their family system. But if we want to qualify people to be experts, I think we need to do that as well in the healing arts. And we've lost that as well, because I was like, there's a lot of people I wouldn't let anywhere near my energy field or let alone touch me, knowing that they're downloading their traumas or their negativity into my energetic auric field. Back in the days of Japan, you did, it was $10,000. You did 2 years of internship to be an energy healer. There was a different type of qualification requirement, for, let's say, the professional world, because I think everybody should learn energy healing and utilize it, but for the professional world. And so we have focused so much in the university world on medical science that has hindered us. And I talk about my theories of corruption of that in book 2 and book 3 with both Jimmy Slide and Mr. Rogers, specifically Mr. Rogers, because that's one of his passions is how did we get so far away from, you know, appreciating our soil and water and animals? Like, how do we get so far away from that? You know, but in essence, I'm now I lost my tangents. So I went, woo, it was like a dance.
It was all necessary because it was the channel, as you said, you're in contact with these beings, whether it's the angels, Mr. Rogers, Mr. Slide, like all of these people you're mentioning, they're speaking through you. And for some reason, they're speaking today.
Yeah.
And they said, we need to get this message out.
Yes.
One of the biggest things, a theme was nature.
Mm-hmm.
And what came up for me was when you said, as healers, we often to be up here, oh, I'm going to do all this consciousness higher. I'm going to get my kundalini on and I'm going to do my thing. And then we forget about nature, the grounding, the soil, the water. How did we get to ignoring these basic things for humanity? We need them, and then we're all up here, and I can attest to me getting there too. And it's part of these conversations we have because we have to be grounded. We have to be grounded in reality. What is actually happening right here, right now? What is humanity calling us for? It's not just calling me to sit in a yoga class all day or to learn sound healing or to see how many breaths I can take or, oh, I want to be the breath master, Reiki 3, here I come. Like, it's like, with so when it comes to nature, how many natural things need to be in our toolkit? Or have we traded in these artificial things for the natural things? What kind of balance or do we need in the toolkit?
Well, we've chosen to be here on Mother Earth. So, you know, one of the things that became very strong in the last 3 years in isolation was walking around in nature, finding forests and trees and and I post this on some of my YouTube videos, but I have this interaction with a donkey and it's really deep and I actually will definitely write a book just on the donkey. But it's a journey where people energy shape shifts into the donkey, and the donkey's teaching you and measuring my healing crises as I'm going. And it's wild. And the donkey has a personality and it shape shifts. And, you know, I think it started with my father and then other energies came into the donkey. But for me, connecting with the donkey, looking into its eyes, calling it in a high little girl voice to heal that little girl, and it hears that tone and it comes, or the different personalities, made me start to understand that the animals are teachers. And when we neglect them, what are we doing? They were chosen to be here on Mother Earth specifically. So when I see specific cats, sometimes I see my dad, I see Jimmy Slide, sometimes I see messages. When I see birds, bunnies excite me. All animals have teachings when we come across them. They're not just like, oh, there's a deer, or oh, there's 7 ducks, or oh, and I think that's definitely a disconnect with people. People are very disconnected to the animal kingdom, and that goes back to my body. I actually had to be these animals to to release, because animals know how to release trauma very easily and very well. They deal with resistance and resilience very well in nature. You have storms, you have battles with other animals. And it's an interesting thing when you study them and the teaching tools that they offer. But for me, I would love children to reconnect to not only their bodies in that way, to respect the spider, to respect the caterpillar, to respect the bird, but to understand the interconnection of how when they show up, like when I tell mothers sit under a tree and a bunny shows up, do you think it's just showing up? Maybe it's there if you're meditating in your breath work. There's messages there telepathically, energetically, but we're not teaching these shamanic types of things. I don't have to take any type of formula to go into some other realm to have an experience on Mother Earth. I've never taken plant-based medicine, but I've had severe, like off the charts shamanic journeys. So I feel, and the people that I know that have, and if it has succeeded for you, that's wonderful. I always say, if your healing tools succeed for you, it's wonderful. But I haven't met anybody that I met who has done all that stuff in Peru seems very lost in my interpretation, depressed at times, addicted to it, but afraid of pain, afraid of childhood abuse pain, afraid of dealing with mommy and daddy issues on a really root level that goes ancestrally. So we can't be avoiding those things just to check out and go into, and I hate to say it as fantasy world, but is it? You know, I play with my angels now and I create songs and I dance and they feel real to me, but I'm real here. Like I walk down the street, when I see plastic water bottles everywhere on the ground, I'm upset. There's something wrong here. I'm going to go on a tangent today on something. It's just recently, so I'm going to share it with you. So bear with me. But we talk about the physical realm of choosing to be on Mother Earth. And, you know, I'm writing music and I would like to get some of my songs out, but I think of the music industry and how corrupted it has been. To each its own, with contracts and this and that. And I'm thinking, how do I want my music to come out into the world? And one of my father's albums that's sitting right here. This is an old album of Ella Fitzgerald. This is like old
Oh,
school. He used to have a record player in his car. I don't know how that was possible, but he played
they
Ella.
were doing it because do you know Bob Proctor? He tells that story too, like how he was playing the record player in the car.
I want a record player. I'm convinced I want to go back to that because I remember in my dance studio in the basement, it was very bare minimal, but I had a record player. There's something magical about choosing the album. This has weight. This has substance. It talks about her. It talks about her. So I can know about Ella, right? I would love this to be remembered and not all the plastic in our ocean and in our ground. So when I hear this every day, and I'm sorry if I'm triggering anybody, it's not my agenda, but I hear the 20 and 30-year-olds go to these music festivals in the United States and I ask them, you know, about it. And a lot of times they're listening to this music. Yeah. And they're drinking out of plastic and they're drinking all these deadly things and they're smoking and they're so disconnected from the practicality of how we solve issues. They're so running on a program that isn't empowering them. And it's sad because we need more people empowered right now. We're in trouble in America. And I think to myself, so our legacy is every time I walk into a park and I count the plastic bottles snuck in the trees and in the ground, that's our legacy, but we're going to get rid of albums, you know, because we need technology. You can just put it on YouTube right now. You could just put it on, oh, as I almost move my water, you could just put it on. And I'm not saying that convenience isn't good, but I'm saying the imbalance of it is not, in my opinion, as an artist, because a lot of people are listening to music and they don't even understand the music now. They don't even understand the artist. We should value and invest in specific artists, who they are, how they came about their song and their lyrics, This is healing. But when you're just listening and you're out and you're drinking toxic from billionaire companies, but you think you're spiritual, you're not. And I'm sorry to say that. And I faced that in my whole city. And nobody likes me because of it. Or people, I'm like the virus, people just sort of look at me because I'm the outsider, because I'm the one voicing, but I don't understand. If you know that's a billion-dollar company and that's toxic and they did witchcraft on that product, why are you drinking it? Why did you put your $5 to it? But we're doing this nonstop. And this goes into the billionaire, millionaire leaders, the men, and this goes into the young spiritual people who are lost and don't have connection to the soil and water and animals and themselves and their past life stories. Most people don't even know they have a past life. So, when I look at this album and I think about, I've been meditating with it, the weight of it, somebody took the time to create this. I get to hold it. I get to feel its energy, just like my books that took so long, that's coming out. When you hold the book, you get to hold my bloodline energy and power. You're going to get an activation when you hold my book. Not when you download it, when you hold the book in your hand. There's a difference with that. And we might be becoming too technology too fast and not enough within our own technology of the advancement of the brain.
Mm.
So we might become more codependent on some artificial. I understand there's other beings and entities. I've seen them. I'm mystical. I call myself a mystical American. I was born in America for a reason and was born in a practical environment for a reason, to show that I am mystical. Because when I think about mystical, in the last 1,000 years, but let's talk about the last couple hundred years. When I think about all the volunteers for these different temples of men who were the masters, and then some of them taken down by child trafficking and by hurting children. Are we dyslexic? Do we even recognize a healer, a real healer? Or are we dyslexic for the next quick fix? Because not all those men got caught with their crimes against humanity, but a lot of them have in the last 20 years. A lot of them don't realize it because it's not on Google. That's where my research of my master, these men that come to me and give me information, and I find different interesting things that get caught, you wouldn't find unless you had an investigator on the other side. And I think that's the magic of the angels that come to me right now. And I'm honored that they've chosen me. But I've proven through sacrifice and discipline that I am not going to sell out and be bought out. I'm not perfect. I'm far from perfect. I'm always going to be advancing in self-development, but I have a lot of information to offer to the right spiritually advanced healers, and specifically in America, because I was born here for a specific reason, to set the tone for the rest of the world. Even though I love the rest of the world, my clients from India and Australia and Africa were much easier to work with, and that's from past lives, than America, because there's so much karma within my bloodline from slavery.
Hmm. There's like this bridge, I guess. It's we gotta be able to bridge these things. Because one thing I'm picked up as you're describing, oh, we got litter, we have this, it's all of this bad stuff. The men in power who've been predators, it's all of these just horrific things happening. We really, because we started out this chat talking about throwing away the toolkit of the physical modalities, and we ended up sandwiching back to picking up the physical things because we need to reclaim it in a new way. is what I'm hearing. That's what you represented with that Ella Fitzgerald album. And you reminded me of these other two guys. They have a podcast called Let's Hear It, I think. They review albums and
Mm.
they break down, especially what you are saying. Like they did Michael Jackson Off the Wall, they did
Mhm.
D'Angelo Voodoo. They do a lot of like Ella jazz projects mainly. And they're showing what is this artist's story. Because to me, that's what the disconnect is.
Mhm.
What is the story?
Mhm.
We got to get back to the essence of the story. And it's in physical form, it's in
Mhm.
spiritual form, it's in emotional form, and it's tangible.
Mhm.
The story is what's tangible. Your story, my story,
Mhm.
the story of your lineage, the story of
Mhm.
America. You
Mhm.
spoke so much about that. What do we have to bear? What's in the soil?
Mhm.
Literally, there's stuff in the soil in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, where I am, in Virginia, where I grew up, in Florida. We can name the places that needs to be uprooted. And it's people like you who are breeding that connection. How do you feel about that responsibility? Like, do you see it as a responsibility or is it just your soul's calling? Because I just see it as this.
Well, I think that the book series coming out, what I'm proud about that series, and obviously my dad worked from the other side on book one. Jimmy Slide worked on book two. Mr. Rogers worked on book three, and there'll be a book four in the series, is we engage with the audience after each chapter. So we're engaging with you to unravel your story again, not just psychologically, but spiritually. And then some of the end of the self-cares or medical meditations, there's probably about, at least 80 medical meditations. So there's a lot of library there. And just because you know a medical meditation doesn't mean you're doing it in the way that you need to. You may be needing to do it on a low note or a high note. Depends on what chakras are imbalanced within your soul database. You may need to do a different mudra. Like I use Satanama, but there's like at least 12 different mudras for that. So which one do you need? So we're just giving you the foundation to start inspiring people to go inside again to their own stories because they don't know the questions to ask themselves. Mr. Rogers asked a lot of questions to me to heal my inner child during the last couple of years. So the mental therapists aren't being taught these things. And so these books are also manuals for the next healers, coaches, training events to then go into it deeper. And we're using my story and we're using the web of how it's all interconnected. Me knowing all of my bloodline now, the Black women in my maternal blood, lineage and my dad's past, like me knowing all of that webs into my soul purpose. It rubs into all the pain having a reason because I do have a responsibility to use my voice because the women in my past were chained.
Mm.
They didn't get to have that opportunity. They didn't even get to have an opportunity to buy a t-shirt. Okay. So it would be a disgrace for me to let this go. This is why I suffered so much in this life and I wouldn't want to do it again. But being at the end of that suffering now, I am passionate about my books and my songs and about my teachings and coming into union with my soul tribe and really setting the stage to heal some of this stuff, to get the bloodline upgraded, and to get this predatorial system that's in so much of our systems and leadership out, to dissolve it. It's time. And whether they want to heal, those predators want to heal, great. And if they don't, get away, stay away. They're not building what I'm building.
Yeah, I mean, when something is being reconstructed, another thing does need to dissolve. It needs to die. We talked about that last week with our guest, the death of me. And
Mm.
As we begin to wrap up our chat today, what do you have to share, and where are you right now in terms of these tools? And I've heard you reference the books. I know the books are critical to the masses. What other things are you using right now, and you can maybe share with the audience?
So the tool list is the book will be out probably by the third week of November. We're working on the book cover and the Amazon link as we speak for book one. So if you would like that tool, you can email me at youmatter108@gmail.com. That email is also on my website at Heather Ann Ferri. Another toolkit that's on my website on the first page is an ebook called Water Matters. Download it. It's really easy to download and read it and investigate your upgrading in water filters. If you don't have a water filter, then you are the filter of arsenic, forever chemicals, and a bunch of other stuff. And if you come from a lot of trauma like myself, trauma creates cancers. So we need to have the best medical grade water to be able to combat while we're releasing those traumas. So we're not so acidic. So if you look at pictures on my website, you'll see me inflamed. My brain, I look different. I don't look healthy. And in my ebook, I present that. So that's another tool. I'm partnering with very specific people to do workshops and events with. So if you're somebody that wants to do an event, hire me as a speaker or as a facilitator teacher. Once again, that's my email and my website. And that gives you a little taste of what's going on.
Yes, you giving us a whole menu today. Like we got a whole menu. Again, everybody, because your website is what, heatherannferry.com?
Yeah, it's my full name.
Yes, heatherannferry.com, everybody. You heard it right here on Healing is War. Also, the email for contact is youmatter108@gmail.com. Remember, everybody, your soul is calling you to greatness. Be a soldier. You are ready for war. We will see you next time on Healing is War. Thank you again. Recording stopped. Give me just a second. I'm going to stop this. Okay, we are all set. I had to stop the stream
That's
there.
great. I'll look at it today and then I'll create a link for my website page podcast so people can also search engine it.
Yes, because I will send you the link once I upload it,
Awesome.
because I'm going to put a couple of edits
Perfect.
in there. Because I did it on my other YouTube channel because I don't have enough subscribers yet on the Healing is
Right.
War one, so I'll
Right.
be uploading it to that channel.
Right. So whatever you send to me, then I'll work on the CEO and then I'll send it out to my audience.
Yes,
Thank you so
ma'am.
much.
Yes, it was fantastic. I don't even know what we said. It was all important. That's all
That's
that.
so funny. Yeah. I didn't plan on going where I went, but it's
It was supposed to. It is always, it's just wherever the souls are leading us, that's where we supposed to go. That's one reason I do these podcasts, because it was happening naturally in my massage practice. Conversations like this. And to me, this is part of what I can offer, is showing people
and you
this
were
is just a
mentioning
message.
a podcast, Let's Hear It. Is
Yeah,
that
let's hear. Hold on a second, because I just got exposed to this a couple of weeks ago. Let me see. Is it called Let's Hear It? Because they're two jazz musicians, and they go into breaking down different albums.
that's awesome. I would love to check that
Is it
out.
called Let's Hold on? D'Angelo. Uh, You'll Hear It is
You'll
called
hear
You'll
it.
Hear It. Yes. That's the name of their podcast. And it's fabulous.
What's
Yeah.
so I should be able to find that on YouTube is what you're saying.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah,
you'll
just
hear
put
it.
in You'll Hear It, and
Okay.
you should see them.
Um,
These two guys, they just speak on what does this song mean? What was the instrumentation? They even play interviews from the artists or from some of the musicians from the album. It's fascinating.
That's wonderful. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, I hope to stay in touch with you. You're wonderful.
Yes, we will. We will. And I'll be looking for your book coming out
Yes.
too
I'll let you know
next
when it's
month.
out. Yep,
Yeah.
soon.
All right, Heather.
Okay.